and my mom came over. She lives in Canada, and she came in that room, and the way she looked at me, just her face, was like I was already dead, and she was grieving the loss of me. And I'll never, ever forget that moment. And it was so impactful. Finally being able to like have that moment and see like, whoa, people can tell I messed up. I got problems. Because I was, the secrets kept me sick. I thought the addiction had me believing that I was okay, and that I looked okay and everything was okay. And I wasn't. And then someone else said to me in that same week, hey, don't die while you're still alive.
Wow. And
I was like, damn. And so I started really going, I got something going on here.
Hey, what's going on? Using my story. Again, it's me, Samuel. It's having another great podcast. So we're just going to jump right in. We're super excited that she's here. So let's go ahead and tell me your name and tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well.
My name's Jenny Leone. I am in recovery. I recover out loud. I preach it from the mountaintops daily. That's like my mission. So yeah, I'm super stoked to be here with you and share some of my story.
Awesome. So, we were talking a little bit about your car outside, and you're living fast, and you're, getting things done and not ashamed. And you're, like you said, your personality is you're like, I'm here. Yeah. I'm here to show up and show out. So we use our community and our platform to help people, somewhat what you do. Mm-hmm. So we're going to jump a little bit into that as well. Mm-hmm. So again, I'm super humbled that you're here and we're able to meet people in the community that are doing the same thing that we're doing, because we want to bring attention and we want to shine the light and we want to make sure that it doesn't get pushed under the rug. Absolutely. Like a lot of things do, right?
Yeah.
So let's just get into it. So let's talk about a little bit about your struggles. Mm-hmm. If that was addiction and mental health, a combination of both, and what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so it was addiction. It started young. I mean, I started numbing myself at a very young age, like 12. And that kind of just like set me off, and going. It started that, addiction gene just off and running. So by like my early 20s, I was all doctor prescribed to begin with. So it was Xanax, Adderall, and Norcos. That was like my get down. And I did that for like well over a decade. And, for me, I didn't hang out with drug addicts or alcoholics. And so I didn't really understand the dangers in using prescription drugs. And that I would, essentially start to be needing more and more, and that I wouldn't just be able to come off, when I wanted to. And so, yeah, it got pretty crazy. And then when I tried to stop one day, I was like, holy shit, I can't just stop, like I'm going to go into massive withdrawal. And so I just kept using,
So you were starting at 12
mm-hmm.
and it was diagnosed. You had diagnosis that called for those prescriptions?
Well, I had a lot of childhood trauma. Okay. I was molested as a child by a family member from 3 to 12. So it was like a long-term thing going on there. And so I didn't know what to do but numb myself. So when I came out and told my parents what was going on at 12, I was sent to a doctor. I was prescribed medications. And that's how it started.
Which seems to be a way out, for a lot of doctors. They just feel like, I'm just going to give you this and you're not going to feel anything.
Right, exactly. They're just script happy. I was back in Canada. This is a long time ago. I mean, it's still happening now, and it's really sad. It's like there should be a disclaimer, and you shouldn't just not everyone should just qualify for these medications. You know what I mean? It's like there should be extensive testing, appointments, therapy sessions, like all of that, like treat you as a whole person before they say, all right, I'm going to write you a script. Like I could go walk into a doctor's office today easily and get a script for something.
Yeah, which is scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Right? Because it's like, how are you really helping people? You're not really. And then when you get to the point like you were like, I want to stop. This isn't helping me. This is just crushing me at this point. And then you go into the withdrawal stage, and then you're looking for treatment. And then some people, right, as I'm sure you know, is when their prescription runs out and the doctors are not filling anything anymore, what's the alternative?
Right. And for me, that's what it was. And thank God I got sober almost 8 years ago when fentanyl wasn't hitting like it is now, because I'd be dead, because I couldn't get the amount I needed to get anymore. So then it was, all right, I'm going to find somebody on the street. So I had my one dealer on the street that I would pick up from on a weekly basis. On top of the stuff I was getting from the doctors, and it was just like never enough,
Yeah. So you were talking about you wanted to stop, and then you weren't able to. Did you go into treatment?
No, I didn't. So I was working, I had a lot of things. So it was harder for me personally to get sober. No one knew. So, I was making good money. I had a house, had a car, had nice things. And then I'm in the closet, like just popping these pills, constantly. And I didn't know how to stop. I didn't even know what treatment was because I wasn't surrounded by that at all. So I just like sitting in my house going, well, I'll just keep using these pills. Yeah. And that went on and on and on and on until I finally quit. But I did that for 15, 20 years, taking. And then at the end, of course, my mind that's trying to kill me, I thought, well, I'll just start drinking. And if I start drinking, then I'll stop taking these pills. And so that was like the last 3 years of my using. I started drinking heavily, and then I got really sloppy with the drinking. I was having blackouts and things like that. And so it became more noticeable of what was going on. And so that was the final straw to get help. Now, of course, I had many bottoms, overdosed many times, was in psych wards many times for going into psychosis. Yeah. Because I wouldn't sleep for a week. I was anorexic skinny. I lost my gallbladder through this whole process. Wow. And yeah, like I would just lose it and go into psychosis and wake up 3 days later, strapped down to a bed, not knowing what happened. Wow. So it was like these things were happening and I had all these bottoms, but it wasn't until I was really ready. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you got to have that moment. And I had that moment and I was sitting in my room and I had a gun in one hand and I had my life in the other hand. And I just knew there was this voice. It was like, if you don't get treatment, if you don't get help right now and ask for help, you're going to die. And I just knew it. I knew I would die. And for so long, I wouldn't ask for help because I looked at that as a weakness. Yeah. Like, oh, I can be successful in all these areas of my life. What is wrong with me? Just get it together, Yeah. And I couldn't, and I didn't understand it. And I didn't realize until after getting sober that asking for help was actually the most courageous thing I could possibly do, the bravest thing I could do.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And that's a crucial thing that you just said, right? Where you come to that moment of clarity. That's what I call it, the moment of clarity, right? Yeah. When people actually feel like, okay, I can't do this anymore and I need to get sober.
Yep.
And that's where like people either have to reach out or look to their support system, that one person that they didn't think was dependable.
Yeah.
Right? And then you call out to that person like, man, I need help.
Yeah.
And then they come to the rescue for some reason, even though you may have done that person dirty 20 times down the line, they're that one person that believed in you, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you have that moment of clarity. And that's when I tell, because I work in treatment.
Yeah.
So I tell that's when you have to strike when the iron's hot.
Absolutely.
Right? Because if you don't catch them in that moment and you don't work that moment to its full capacity, you're going to lose that person.
Absolutely.
While they go on that next run.
Yeah, yeah.
So you talked a little bit about, you made the comment of overdosing multiple times. You went into a psych wards and during that process. Mm-hmm. What would you say out of all those moments was like a crucial defining moment that you were just like, bro, my life is out of control?
A moment that I always remember, and it's not some crazy moment where I'm like being rushed off in an ambulance or something, but I was in the hospital. I just got my gallbladder removed. I was 100 pounds soaking wet and I'm 5'8", and I'm in this room. I'd been in there for a few days and my mom came over. She lives in Canada and she came in that room and the way she looked at me, just her face was like I was already dead and she was grieving the loss of me. And I'll never, ever forget that moment. And it was so impactful. Finally being able to like have that moment and see like, whoa, people can tell I messed up. I got problems because I was, the secrets kept me sick. I thought the addiction had me believing that I was okay, and that I looked okay and everything was okay. And I wasn't. And then someone else said to me in that same week, hey, don't die while you're still alive.
Wow.
And I was like, damn, and so I started really going, I got something going on here.
It's crazy, and it's kind of funny that you said something right now, and it made me kind of laugh in my head. It was like when we are in our addiction, right? We're showering, shaving my head, getting dressed, ironing my clothes, and I'm thinking I look good.
Yeah.
Right? And then people are looking at you like, bro, you look half dead.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with you?
I was one of those girls that would be in the mirror, on a bunch of Adderall, like taking pictures of myself all night and just thinking I'm looking so good.
Yeah.
And it's just delusional. Like I look back on those pictures and I'm like, oh my God, you are so sick.
Yeah. And it's speaks volumes to where your mindset is, right? Because you're in an addiction and you just have this mask on, like everything is fine.
Yeah.
Everything is good. Look at me. I look like, the world's top 10.
Yeah. And that's why it's good for friends and family members to know that too. because, without them working a program of their own, doing Al-Anon, understanding addiction, it can be very confusing. Like, why can't they just see this? We keep telling them. And to understand the addict mind that we don't see any of that. We're so absorbed in ourself and what we think in this delusional state that we don't know.
Yeah. And one thing I always talk about too is we always talk about support systems, and you were talking about family going to Al-Anon and seeking help themselves to deal with the life of an addict, whether that's your child, your sibling, whatever it may be. And we've had guests come on here and we talk about, we don't look at the effects of our addiction and what we're doing, what effect that does to our family and its long-term effects.
Yeah. It's a family disease.
Yeah.
I've worked in treatment for almost 8 years. And watching, how it's a family disease and the family systems and, the generational, stuff that goes on, and everyone needs to work on it together as a family if you want to heal. And also for the addict, when they get into recovery, what I see a lot too is get into early recovery. You're doing so much good work. You're on this pink cloud, and you're like, well, I'm better now.
Yeah.
Hey, mom and dad. Hey, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, I'm better now. Look how good I am. And they're still sitting in this space holding their breath going, oh, I don't know. So it's like allowing people their process, being gentle on them, being gentle on yourself, and taking it one day at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people say that that's cliche, but it's so true.
It's true.
It's like tomorrow's not here. Yesterday's over with. I can't deal with that. Today's here, so let's just deal with today.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, when you say that, oh, that's so cliche. It is.
It is.
But bro, it works.
But it works.
If you deal with it one day at a time, you're not really worried about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we talked about your addiction. We talked about your family history a little bit. We talked about your mom. So kudos to your mom being a support.
Props to my mom.
Yeah. Shout out moms. So at what point did you say, okay, I'm done? And you made that choice and you started taking those steps to maintain and retain your sobriety?
Yeah. So for me, I was a life-changing decision, not just to get sober, but to completely turn my life around from where I was to who I was going to become, because I came from a completely different background, was film and television. And when I got sober, I knew that I was going to have to walk away from all those people and that lifestyle completely. So it was like getting sober and going, okay, who am I? Who am I? And what do I want to do? Because I always tell people it's one thing to get sober. That's great. But unless you find your purpose, your passion, what drives you, what wakes you up in the morning with a smile on your face, you're going to be white knuckling or you're going to be unhappy and there's possibility of relapse. You got to find that passion. And so for me, I had this aha moment while I was in treatment. So I went to treatment, went through detox, got into residential. And when I was in residential, I was like, this is what I need to do. I need to help people in one capacity, one way or another, and turn all my negatives into a positive. Yeah. And if I can save one life through this whole process, everything I went through in my past, it's all worth it. Yeah. And so that's what I did. And so I worked a solid program. I put myself back in school, did the whole drug and alcohol program, started working as an intern, started working in treatment. Now, working in treatment is not my recovery. It's not my program. People need to hear that because I emotionally relapsed a lot the first couple of years because I was figuring all that out. So I worked, an AA program. I had a sponsor. I was going to meetings all the time. I did outside therapy. I did outside spiritual work. I found new hobbies and passions. I seeked out mentors in my life that I wanted to, be more like in the future, whether it was, career-wise, fitness-wise, just spiritual life in general. And with all those components, it set me up for success. And turning my frame of mind from victim to survivor, and the mentality of why not me? Because I used to look at everybody else and be like, oh, you know what, maybe for you, not for me, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, why not me? And when we get into recovery, it's like we're given this whole new opportunity at life. It's like a superpower. And so it's like, why not me? I'm going to do everything I want to do in life. So.
And then, you're making a lot of valid points and a lot of things that a lot of people don't want to talk about, right? And a lot of things that people don't want to address. And one of the things that you said was people that work in treatment, right? It's not a program. It's not something that's going to get you better.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in recovery. And I've seen it multiple times. I've been doing this about the same amount of time you have, about 9 years. And I tell people when you come in, working in treatment isn't for everybody. And it takes a toll on you if you allow it to.
Yeah.
And if you don't know strong boundaries and you don't know how to leave it at work.
Exactly.
Right? And so a lot of people that I know doing this for 9 years, I've seen a lot of people relapse emotionally. but also going back to their DOCs, and then next thing you know, I'm trying to get them into treatment because obviously you build a rapport with those people.
Yep.
But it's crucial that people need to understand is like working in treatment is not for everybody.
Yeah.
Especially in like your early time of recovery.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I always say personally, you know, get a year under your belt before you start working in treatment. I didn't do that because I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I should have never started working in treatment right away as an intern. I wasn't ready. Like for me, the first 5 years of my recovery was like a spiritual rebirth, you know, like relearning, you know, deprogramming, like all those things. I mean, they say with people that go into working in treatment that aren't, you know, ready for it, it's like an 8-month burnout rate, in and out, in and out, in and out. So yeah, take the time, do the work on yourself, for yourself, your family, your relationships, for others, and then come in with a healed mind that you can actually help people.
Yeah. Because you can't pour from an empty cup.
Nope, sure can't.
You know?
Yeah.
People try.
They try all the time.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work. So knowing that you've worked in treatment and you're still working in treatment and you're still helping people, what else would you say helps you stay sober and like focused on your sobriety?
Well, for me, you know, I've made my life recovery. So for me, you know, I recover out loud. So I work this program every single day of my life that works for me. And I get up in gratitude, and I get up humble, and I get up in a way that, you know, I just appreciate life and everything it has to offer every single day. And I have my routine that I do. You know, I do spiritual things. I do, you know, health and wellness things. And then I help somebody else, you know, I pay it forward, you know, and I live that lifestyle because for me personally, I knew that I needed to live life this way or else I would go back to the way I was living before.
Yeah. So with doing all these things that you're doing and you're helping all these people, how's your family with you now? Amazing.
You know, for me, I have a son, he's 15, and there was a period of time that I had to fight over custody to have him with my ex-husband. It's a very long story, but at the end of it, you know, through love, patience, tolerance, understanding, I was able to get my son back in my life, and he's in my life on a full-time basis now. He lives with me full-time. Awesome. We have the most amazing relationship. And there was times, you know, that it was dark and emotional and terrifying, you know, that we weren't going to be able to get past the things that happened in the past. And like I tell people all the time, whether it's a father or a mother that's going through the same thing, if you show up and do your best every day and stay consistent and show, you know, with your actions, not your words, of who you are and who you are today, over time, it will work out.
Yeah.
Even if it takes 2, 3, 4 years, if you stay consistent, I mean, pretty much like that with anything in life, you know, it will work out. And so now we have a relationship I never thought would be this amazing. So
I shared my story before too, and we talked about sharing our stories with our children. Have you shared your story with your son?
Yeah, my son knows every bit of my journey. And by doing that, he's so open with me. You know, he tells me everything. He trusts me fully, you know, to talk about these things. And he really understands the dangers with drugs and alcohol now. You know, it's like he knows, because I'm constantly talking about it, that you can't recreationally use drugs anymore because it's like Russian roulette. Anytime you go out, hit a pen, a weed pen, you know, take a Xanax off the street or a pain pill at a party on a Friday night, you don't know if that's going to be one that's laced and you're dead. Like it's happening all the time. You cannot just think, oh, I'm just lucky, it's not going to happen to me. It's going to come knocking at your door one way or another. And so he knows that. And so he won't recreationally use anything, which is so nice. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but it's nice that he can see it for what it is. And it's funny because like a lot of people, schools and different things are still kind of on the fence about talking about it in a very raw, authentic way. Like, oh, well then maybe they'll want to use it. Like, no, tell them, like they need to know.
Yeah.
Like we need to educate because fentanyl isn't going anywhere. But if we can spread awareness and educate our youth, at least we might have a fighting chance of them understanding what's going on.
I think the key is to be raw and to be intentional.
Yes.
Right? I don't think sugarcoating it is going to benefit anybody.
No.
Because the world is not a nice place.
Right.
You know, so when we're literally losing a whole generation. to fentanyl because people don't want to talk about it. Now it's starting to come out a little bit more. But if you see it, like even Jelly Roll did when we talked about it, right? And you're talking about people now that are stepping out and they're saying, okay, you don't want to talk about it, but we will.
Yeah.
So this is where like our podcasts come into play. This is where all these things come, because this is where people can come and find it truth and uncut. It's just like, bro, look at, you're like you said, you're playing Russian roulette, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you're going to go pop a pill, try to stick something up your nose, whatever it may be.
Yep.
Just know you got a 50-50 shot.
Absolutely. Like I call it a weapon of mass destruction because it really is. I mean, 300 people a day are going down from this. I've known several just in this last like 30 days, you know, people that I never thought would be affected by it. So it's
I've lost people, family members, you know,
sorry.
Thought he was taking pain meds. Obviously he was doing his thing.
Yeah.
But it's like you signed up for something, but you got something else.
Yep.
You know, and you know, somebody else, same thing, pressed bars. They thought they were taking Xanax, ended up losing their life. So it's like, no matter what you do, the hippie days are over.
They're so over.
Long gone. Yep. And it's like, bro, you're literally just playing with your life.
Yes.
And
every
it's scary.
Single time. It's terrifying.
It's like, and that's why I say, like, being raw with your kids, to me is like, I'm going to save my kids. Exactly. And if I can sit here and be honest, brutally honest with you and just be like, man, this is what it is, and show you the things that I've been through and show you things that other people have been through, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And if that gets through to you and you choose not to go do that because of what you remember in that moment, I've done my job as a parent.
Exactly. Agreed.
Yeah. It's super scary.
Yeah.
So what we like to do now is, first off, thank you for coming. I appreciate you coming out and just being real and being honest and sharing your story a little bit. Definitely going to bring you back out again.
Okay, cool.
But what we like to do at the end of our podcast is we give our guests a moment just to speak from the heart and just be completely raw and uncut and just be like, hey, this is what it is, whether it's encouragement, hope, or a correction, whatever you feel like you want to bring to the community. We have a great community that's super open. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you that time. This is your camera.
Okay.
So you go ahead and take as much time as you need.
All right, hot seat.
Go ahead, hot seat.
There you go. I'll speak to women out there. So for me, for the longest time, I didn't have a voice. I was a people pleaser. I let people walk all over me. I was afraid of confrontation, and I just went along with what other people said. And that started from, you know, childhood trauma, being over-sexualized, you know, that whole thing that led into my addiction. And I just want to tell you, if you're out there and if you're in a situation, whether it's, you know, a relationship, something to do with a family member, friend, and you're uncomfortable, you can speak up. You know, there's people that will listen to you, and you can also get sober through this process. So for me, I didn't have a voice. I found my voice in recovery, and you can too. We just have to get brave and courageous and talk to somebody. You know, like what you were saying, there's that one person you can talk to. There's somebody you can call. I'm sure there's a number here on the podcast you can call too, and find your voice. You know, you can find recovery, find your voice, you know, become a survivor, and in turn, have a life beyond your wildest dreams. You know, people used to say that to me, and I did not believe it. It would actually make me really mad. But my life in recovery is beyond my wildest dreams. You know, I've done the work on myself. I have a voice. I love myself now. I know my worth. I have the confidence, and you can too. I promise you that. So if you're struggling, reach out.
Nice. So there you have it, using my story. Once again, I'm Samuel, and we'll see you guys on the next podcast.